How you doing? A lot of people ask me how to build a canoe. They don't realize that it's actually a two-step process. Before you can build a wood canvas canoe, you have to build the mold that you're going to build it on. If I roll this up on edge, you can see the mold. You have a strong back for the bottom. Then you have what we call stations, which provide the shape or the mold of your canoe. And these stations are braced to the strong back. I don't know if you can see that angle brace inside there. And that keeps them all straight and level and plumb. And then we cover the whole thing with 3/4 inch battens, pine battens. They're joined side to side. That gives you the form to bend your ribs on. And we fair those battens with a big block of wood that's covered with sandpaper so that there aren't any rough edges. They're just a continuous symmetrical curve. And on top of those, you can just see the ends of these metal bands. We put a metal band wherever a rib is going to go. And what that band does is it fills in the gaps between those blocks of wood, and it also bends the ends of the tacks over, what we call clinching. So when you pound the tack into the plank, it goes in, it hits that band, curls the end over, and that holds the plank in place until you take the whole thing off and re-clinch everything. And then on top of the form, we take our ribs and we steam them, or you can boil them, either one. I prefer boiling. And we bend them on top of those metal bands, and we tack them on the ends on the end wales. After they're all on, we leave them for 3 days to dry and what we call harden. And then we take that same big block of wood with the sandpaper that we used to fair up the form, we fair up the ribs. We fair them this way, and we fair them lengthwise, and in the ends we fair them in 2 or 3 different directions. And what we're trying to do is get a nice smooth plane for the planking to go on, so it can meet all the angles that there are on a canoe. When those are all faired up, we take our planking, we start right in the center. We put one plank on each side of the center of the canoe, and we nail it down. Because this is a miniature form, we only have to nail it twice for each plank. On a regular canoe with, say, 2.5 inch planking, we'll probably nail it 3 times. A lot of the old canoes had 4 and 5 inch planking, and they were nailed 4 or 5 times per piece of planking. But anyway, the first 2 planks are the hardest. When you get to the end, they've got to do a compound curve. So we usually end up wetting them. Sometimes we have to steam them or boil them to get them pliable enough to make those curves without cracking on us. And then the rest of the planks just abut up to them, and they're nailed on the ends, what we call the stem, and then nailed on every rib. And that's basically all there is to building the carcass of the canoe. And then we take our fairing block, and we'll go over all of this and fair out the edges, make it nice and smooth. Nice smooth transitions with all the curves, nothing sticking up. If there are any tacks sticking up, we'll re-clinch them with a clinching iron. Make sure that they're down and in the wood and not sticking up to poke through your canvas. And when everything is nice and smooth, when you can run your hand over it and it feels really smooth, there's no splinters, there's no rough spots, no ridges, then we'll oil it all down with what I use for a mix is 50% turpentine, 50% linseed oil. Oil this down, 2, 3, 4 coats, one right after the other until it stops absorbing the oil. I oil both the outside and the inside. And the reason for that is if you don't oil the inside, some of it's going to drain through the cracks and it's going to stain the planks on the inside. When you get ready to varnish, that causes a problem. If you oil the whole thing out, you won't get those stains. But anyway, you oil that all out and you let it dry a day or so. That helps protect the wood. That helps keep the water from going into the wood and making it expand and contract. And when that's dry, you go ahead and put your canvas on. We'll show you in a later video how to do that, but right now it's just suffice to say that we stretch the canvas in 2 different directions. We stretch it lengthwise, and then we stretch it widthwise individually at every rib and nail it with 2 tacks at each rib. When the canvas is all on and tight, we use what we call filler, which is a paint-based product. It's like a real thick paint, and we rub that into the weave of the canvas until it's smooth. I don't know if you can see it here, but canvas has a little checkerboard weave to it where they weave it together. And if you just painted that, your paint would look the same way. It would never be smooth. And what we're doing is we're filling that weave to an even surface. And that gives you the base for your paint, and it also waterproofs your canvas. After the canvas is on and we've filled it, it's a 6-week waiting period for the filler to dry. When that's dry, we sand it lightly, and then we coat it with paint. And it usually ends up with 3, 4, sometimes 5 coats of paint to get it nice and smooth. The smoother it is, the more it'll shine, the better it'll look, and the better it's protected. Once it's all painted out, you've put your decals on or whatever you're going to do, and you varnished the inside, varnished all your wood and anything that's exposed, varnished some of your metal work. It looks all nice and pretty, and it's ready for the customer.